Our next reader is kind of an entertaining blogger. I have checked out her site and I think you should as well. Ellen Goulam is the author of, best title by the way, which is not the title, but not to worry, Don't Shoot, I Have Another Story to Tell You. Her short stories have appeared in publications such as Geist, Adbusters, and on CBC Radio 1. She's a passionate blogger at www.ihath.com. Ellen is also, and we might have to put her to the test for this, a flamenco dancer participating in various performances, so please welcome Ellen.
Thank you, Fiona. So this is a condensed version of a story so that it fits in 10 minutes, and if you want the longer version with all the juicy details, you need to go on my blog. This story is called How I Learned to Appreciate Art. Who needs art? You can't eat art. Society doesn't need artists. Society needs people that can offer solutions to real problems, like doctors and engineers. Such was my thinking in my younger years. I'm not proud of this. I'm only recalling a distant memory. It was not surprising that I went on to study computer science at the university and graduated to dreaming about joining the rank of useful people who solve measurable problems using the polished skills of a well-educated mind. I had my plans, but fate had its own, and my perspective did a U-turn due to a 4-year stay in the city of Jerusalem. I lived in many cities in the world, and each one had its pluses and minuses. Jerusalem is the city I hated living in the most. I hated the sign in the Mia Sharim street that tells women not to walk down the road when they are menstruating because it would be disrespectful to the ultra-Orthodox Jewish traditions. I hated the aggressive Palestinian merchants in the old city that would harass tourists, intimidating them into buying their wares. I hated the tricks priests in the Holy Sepulchre Church were making by making the statue of the Virgin Mary cry so that the devout would be convinced that they were witnessing a miracle and open their wallets more widely. I hated the way Christian pilgrims would descend on the Mountain of Olives in busloads and crawl around, kissing the ground and crying hysterically instead of enjoying the amazing view. And what's up with calling little hills mountains and puny trickles of water rivers? Does a biblical mention render a geographical feature more grand? I hated driving behind a tank on the highway. These things are slow. Taking up 2 lanes, they are hard to pass. I hated riding the public bus because it was dangerous to touch the windows. Having witnessed several fistfights erupting because one person wanted to open the window and the other insisting that it needed to stay closed. One of the most unique experiences Jerusalem has to offer is the privilege to meet a few messiahs. Jerusalem is a city that comes with its own syndrome, called Jerusalem syndrome. It is a state of psychosis where the afflicted, upon visiting the holy city, believe that they are hearing voices from God, which is telling them that they are biblical figures such as the Messiah, John the Baptist, among others. The way I dealt with my anguish, with my surroundings, was that I told myself, everybody around me is insane, but I'm okay. I don't belong to this place, and therefore, none of this will affect me. I'm not proud of this. It simply is what it is. At this point, you would be justified to ask, why not leave and go live somewhere else? Well, my husband, whom I nicknamed Zatara, was attached to a job. I tried everything in my arsenal to persuade the love of my life to move back to Vancouver. I tried logical argument that my well-polished, educated mind could muster, and when that failed, I resorted to less noble means of persuasion. The silent treatment, seduction, crying, hysterics of all sorts. Za'atar was moved, but nothing would make him leave his post. There was broken china, slammed doors. I even threatened to join a peace activist group that works in the occupied territories because I read in the newspaper that foreigners who engage in such subversive activities get promptly deported. I'm not proud of this. I'm just confessing my sins. It was during the winter of my personal discontent that I met my coworker, Boris. Boris was an elegant man, about 20 years my senior, who on most days walked into the office with a smile on his face. He had an endless stream of stories. When he wasn't describing his adventure skiing in the Swiss Alps, he would describe in detail the proper way to enjoy good wine and cheese. Once he explained to me how taking salsa dance classes was helping him deepen his relationship with his wife. Working with Boris was fun. He was on a different plane from anybody I knew at the time. Although I admired Boris, I also sometimes secretly resented him. What is so great about your life, Boris? Why can't you be miserable like the rest of us? The question would pop in the dark recesses of my brain. One day, he showed up to work in an ecstatic state. When I asked him about it, he told me that the night before, he had seen a painting by a famous artist being displayed for only a few weeks at the Israel Museum. You are this excited because you saw a single painting? I said sarcastically, just a painting, paint splattered on canvas. I tried to suppress a laugh, but traces of one showed through anyway. Boris looked intently into my eyes and said, Ellen, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see a masterpiece. Then he handed me a paper handout that he got at the museum with information about the painting. That sparkle in Boris's eyes, the enthusiasm in his voice, mysteriously, I found myself purchasing a ticket at the Israel Museum that very same evening. I positioned myself in the seating provided right in front of the painting that had caused Boris's delirium, and I thought to myself, I will sit here and stare at this painting until I get what Boris sees in it. I began to read the leaflet that Boris handed me earlier and discovered that I was looking at a painting by a famous Austrian called Gustav Klimt. The painting is depicting a biblical figure named Judith who uses her beauty to get close to an army general only to sever his head with her own hands and save her people from destruction. In the painting, Judith is standing tall in a revealing outfit, staring right at the onlooker. She looks confident, self-satisfied, her face bearing an orgasmic expression. But when I looked down in a darker corner of the painting, I saw to my horror the severed head of the general held by the headscarf in Judith's hand. The painting seemed psychotic, with the upper part looking incredibly beautiful and the lower part looking dark and disturbing. I looked into Judith's face. Where's the shame? Where is the remorse? There was none to be gleaned. And that is when I heard a feminine voice in my head that seemed to be coming from the painting itself. The voice said, Ellen, grab hold of your own life. I jumped up from my seat in alarm, and then I shook my head and thought, no. I just imagined that. I sat back and resumed my quiet contemplation. The feminine voice came back, and this time she was aggressive, and she was annoyed. And she said, Ellen, grab hold of your own life. I jumped out of my seat and ran out of the museum in panic. At home, I went straight to bed, I covered myself with a blanket, and I proceeded to shake like a leaf in terror. My thoughts went like this. Darn, it's official now. I'm insane. I'm beginning to hear voices in my head. I've arrived to Jerusalem. Luckily, The voice did not say that I was the Messiah. Still, this was something that my logical mind could neither explain nor deny. A few weeks from that incident, I woke up in the morning and sat on one side of the bed. Zahtara was sitting on the other side of the bed. In a calm voice, I told him, I am moving back to Vancouver in 6 weeks. On that day, there was no broken china, no slammed doors, and no hysterics of any kind. I did move to Vancouver according to my deadline, where I continue to live in my own self-made, somewhat happily ever after. And this I am proud of.